Hello and welcome to February 2026.
Mm.
Here we are as we take the leap between the retiring snake and the engaging horse. So if you're feeling a little disintegrated at the moment, it's okay. It's kind of normal. It's kind of natural. We're here, of course, for the Psychosomatic Conversations, and we, of course, welcome Christy and Linda, and all
Mm.
of you that are currently here with us, and those that will be watching. This month, we're looking at bodywork and integration. However, we're going to do a precursor to that. Why awareness alone doesn't always shift patterns. What is awareness within bodywork? How do we experience that? And how do we know we're experiencing that? But firstly, we need to really look at the awareness first and foremost. Linda, would you like to share with us
Thanks, Sean.
awareness and what is it to you and how do you
The
experience it?
awareness for me is an understanding of how the emotions get stored in the body, and for me specifically, what some of my patterns may be. And certainly, when I have a treatment, a body session, I like to be working my energy in accordance with wherever the person who's given me a treatment, wherever they're working with me, I work with my breath and I work in that same space to create a opening. And I'll just take the opportunity to share my very first experience with receiving an emotional release treatment. I was in a class of people where everyone was having an experience of, crying and some very deep work. And I didn't have that experience at all. And it actually took me a while to realize that some of my protective mechanisms were in place, and I wasn't allowing an allowance for my emotional availability to be present in the session. So it took a little bit of time to feel safety in the body to be able to open my body up to the experience of actually having a body work integrated experience and an emotional release.
Mm. Well, there's so much to unpack in there, but we have an hour
Mm.
to do it in.
We do.
We will come back inside of that because there's so many questions that popped up inside of that for me with regards to how we self-relate and how we
Mhm.
access ourselves whilst in the presence of somebody.
Mhm.
Christy.
Yeah. Well, I would say awareness, I think, is one of the most powerful tools available to us because if we are not aware, we can't change the patterns that are creating pain, whether that be relational pain or physical pain or emotional pain. And I would even include spiritual pain because sometimes that's also part of the pattern. And the thing that I love that I'm so passionate about is our bodies can teach us and show us what are our patterns. And that's why I love somatic work because it doesn't matter what it is, whether that's a mental pattern or an emotional pattern or physical, it will show up in the body. And the body gives us such a beautiful map to bring a deeper level of awareness of why it might be painful or why I can't access emotion and feel. And it's such an intelligent system that as we become aware of the system, we can access more of us. And Linda, you were talking about your first experience. I was a babe. I was 18 and I was having pretty severe migraines. And someone had said, Christy, because I was poor too. I didn't have any money. They're like, you need to go see this person and they'll help you with your headaches. It was within my budget. So I went. And an emotional release is an understatement. I didn't know what I was getting into. I didn't know what would happen, but he had opened something in me that I was had no idea was being held. And I did have a lot of tears and I think this is part of my own path. I was so intrigued because my brain said, okay, he didn't do anything. All he did was like he had his hand on my heart and we talked. And I'm like, how did I become such a mess with him not doing anything? And really, that's when I started school because it was so fascinating because my brain wanted to understand what he did to turn that switch on. Can't say it was pleasant the first time because I didn't understand what was happening. I think that is probably why I'm so anal retentive about explaining what's happening, is because if I can understand the process of an emotional release and the awareness of why it's happening, it makes it a lot less challenging and creates more of an invitation to move through it versus having a tsunami swallow you whole, which is what it felt like to me. And
Oh.
however, though, that's what started me in my career. My brain was just like, how'd you do that? It was like a magician and very intriguing. And here I am today,
The magician.
the magician today. Yeah. So
Yeah,
awareness.
for myself, um, awareness at the time seemed to be what everybody else knew, but I didn't about myself.
Mm,
And the I used to have some really debilitating pain show up in my body. Um, and that in itself was usually wherever I had body work done, um, inevitably there were tears, or what at the time felt like a breakdown, which I realized was actually a breakthrough, because I'm really simply accessing myself or what's been bound within myself that my mind was obviously terrified by,
mm, mm,
whatever it may have been. Um, so integration to me is the accessing of the what my brain perceives as a disturbance that's residing within an organ or within a muscle or within bones. Um, what is encroaching on me that um, that for whatever reason my system um, wants to deny, ignore, or lock out rather than allow in
mm,
and learn from what does need to be seen within myself by myself or the self. What do you notice, Linda, is um, assists your clients in their awareness?
For me, what I came to recognize within myself and therefore also with clients is that sometimes some clients, not all clients, require a gentle approach and the ability to feel the desire to tense up and to create a space of having a curious mindset, speaking to the body and letting the body know it's safe whilst you're actually doing a movement, whether it's not necessarily a fully deep tissue movement, but pressing into the body tissue where the emotion is stored, is a really important part of actually just working with them to create safety in that space and to know that they're safe and to be able to allow themselves to drop into a deeper level of pain. And what I find is that I could be touching actually quite lightly, but when they drop into emotional pain, it's very, very deep, deep sobbing. It has no correlation directly to the physical pain that they may be experiencing in that moment. And sometimes the tears and the tiredness can last for quite some time as the body goes through like a process of rejuvenating. And that energy, it's not like just a fatigue, I'm tired. It's like a deep, deep, um, exhaustive tiredness that goes with an emotional release.
Mm,
But for me, gentle, gentle. I do a combination of a little bit more gentle work, which we will also talk about later.
mm, thanks. Christy,
Mm.
what is
Restate
the
the question for me.
structure?
What is the structure?
Yeah, what is the structure that surrounds or enables awareness?
I, for me, the first part of the structure is language. I can understand where it is in the body a lot of times based on the language used by a client coming in and the frustration that is expressed. And I think every body is so different, and yet they're the same in the patterns that are being held, how they're held, and how they're um, expressed in that is individual. And part of the reason why I love this work so much is because it's not boring. It's never the same in that someone can come in with two people can come in with the same issue and it's a completely different way to untangle the issue. And the body is in charge at that point to show me how that would best be done versus what my head thinks. It's the process of trusting their movement and their cadence within that release.
Got it. Got it.
Can I just add something there as well?
Oh, please.
So, Christy, I think you'd be the same. All of us would be the same, that we all work on the emotional side before we actually get the massage table out, so that the
Mhm.
session prior to going onto the massage table is the area of around the awareness of what's actually going on in the body, creating that link with the patterns and
Mm.
understanding even some of the current situations that could be causing tension, requiring attention.
Yeah, and the keys, what I love about the keys in psychosomatics is that our approach continually has three levels, which accesses the fourth, and that's the mental, the emotional, and the physical. All three levels of our body experience. When those three levels are transparent with each other, we return and restore to who we rightfully are. So the um, for me, I don't always have a specific pathway for the formulation of access because sometimes it's relative to the individual, to their mental disturbance, their emotional disturbance, or their physical inability. And some people are access a lot by the body contact, others access a lot through the emotional content of language and atmosphere. And then others also access a lot through the um, logical maze that shows up. And that's what I love about psychosomatics is that inevitably those three roads meet at some point in a convergence where there's a melting away of a contraction that's currently occurring, whether that's mentally, emotionally, or physically, or all three, or even two of those layers, which is what's causing the deeper disturbance or pain and discomfort um, within an individual's life.
Yeah.
So it's the how people access awareness, I've noticed, is their ability to be able to oversee all that is going on within themselves. And that position of being the overseer of what's going on moves them from being trapped by what's occurring to being able to unravel what's occurring. Yet the ability to do that or become the overseer is often something that has created an impact at some point where we need to surrender our current situation to allow help to occur. And allowing help to occur is also a state of relationships. How we relate to our parents, how we relate to our siblings, how we relate to our school friends, our work friends, how we relate, how we continually relate to people. So the ability to be able to let help occur is also my ability to become incredibly vulnerable at that point in time. Do you agree, Linda?
Yeah, I do agree. The vulnerability is it's important. And I guess the armoring of the body in different parts is going to show how easily a person accepts help or
Or
the
not?
opposite, the independent nature and how everything is basically they're responsible.
Mm,
Quite often people, are looking for a quick fix. And it's almost like, when people often go just for like a standard style of massage, which none of us do standard massages, but they're looking for a quick fix of, I just need this pain to go.
Make that go away.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Can we just get rid of it?
Could you take
So
that off me? Thanks. Yeah.
ours is, of course, an invitation to work with the body in a very different way. It requires participation. It's not an outcome focus. It's actually the invitation to, allow that vulnerability to come through, to be available to yourself, with yourself in a very different space.
Mm,
And where there is pain, the body is calling for attention to a particular area.
support.
And,
Yeah.
and that area tells us the style of connection that reflects to the outer world of also what may be required
Mm,
for some additional healing and support.
yeah. Yeah. Christy, vulnerability.
I think it's essential. I think it's essential because, especially if someone hasn't felt supported or loved, nurtured, to have a container where that is held for and with them as a witness to what was present is, I think, one of the most beautiful healing spaces that can be offered
Mm,
because it's shame is wicked. And shame loves to stay in the dark, and shame loves to not let anyone else see it or hear it because it's so vulnerable and tender. And as emotions move through and are witnessed, it doesn't mean necessarily processed. It means witnessed in that sometimes it can create an emotion and that emotion is held within the session is really where the transformation in the tissue happens. Because as a kid, when it probably went in, it wasn't witnessed, it wasn't held. There's a plethora of reasons and what happens with people. And as we become adults and we can start to interweave and ask for support and ask to be held in whatever way that is, that's where we resource the child within us through various ways. And we're talking about body work. And it can be a really vulnerable space, but so rich and so beautiful if the container is held in the way of trust and reciprocity, because it's a two-way street
Mm.
back and forth of the client being willing to be present and the therapist being present. It's a beautiful space.
Yeah, vulnerability is such a magnet to innocence.
Hmm.
Yeah, and the innocence is the signature of the individual that is being cited for what they're currently experiencing. And that in itself enables for change around what they're currently experiencing. Yeah, it allows it to move through, it gives us permission to experience the hardship of what's current or the identification of something that's lingered long term, that's continuously been there as an inversion within us. And the what I've noticed across time is that when a client appreciates being seen, then change occurs. And I just want you to notice how I said that statement. Because not all clients appreciate being seen for where they are, for how they're trapped, for what's converging on them, for what's overriding them, um, for what's dominating their world, rather than them protecting their own freedom. And it's fascinating how we can separate ourselves or decompartmentalize or even disconnect or disassociate. Linda, do you want to expand on some of those things?
Yes, well, my mind was actually just wandering as as you were speaking, so sorry about that.
No,
But
it's okay.
I was just thinking of a client that I was working with last week, and um, we did some breath work on the table before we even started the session, just to bring awareness, and we'd
Yeah.
already had quite a long conversation. And when I was doing some areas of the body, like she laughed and laughed and laughed and laughed and laughed and laughed. And she said she hadn't laughed like that in like literally probably decade or so.
Wow.
And
Delightful.
the opening can present in different ways. And
Yeah.
laughter is obviously a different expression, which can also be a different expression of tears as well. But it was actually really pleasant just to hear this lady just laugh and laugh and laugh. And she wrote to me later and she just explained what was happening for her in the body and the additional freedom that she was feeling in her body that previously has a lot of pain. So she's trying to work. The reason why she started to come 4 sessions was because she's got trapped pain that's been there for a very, very long time. And
Yeah.
this is like, how do I heal this pain, long-term chronic pain, other
Mm,
than just talking through it?
mm,
So it works in conjunction to um, psychologists, the psychosomatic therapy, and the body work. And that opening is incredibly important.
mm,
Um, but I think as well the way that a person who maybe hasn't cried, and it doesn't always have to be tears that show up. It doesn't always have to be laughter that shows up. People will process, very, very differently based on their individual personalities. But quite often, you'll find that maybe people haven't cried for years and years and years, and there's a containment of frozen tears that show up in the tissues. So to be able to be witnessed through that, and Christy mentioned that as well, but to be able to be witnessed in that process of feeling safe enough to express something that is very sacred.
mm.
Sacred.
Yet at the time, to part of us, feels very foreign
Yeah.
Yes.
because it's so far away from us, right? It's
Yeah.
incredibly
Yeah.
sacred. It's incredibly necessary because it's there, right? It's presenting.
Yeah.
And yet there's a part of us that's in denial in one way or another around, don't make me, I don't want to.
Yeah.
Yes.
And some people
And
literally do that.
yeah,
They'll
yeah,
literally
Yeah.
go, I'm so embarrassed to be crying in front of you.
yeah. Yeah, and some people go away and cry afterwards.
Yeah.
That because that was their childhood thing was no one to see me, no one sees me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In that vulnerable place or space. And when those people are with me, I let them know. I go, hey, it, you can go home and have your own little moment with yourself here. Privacy is something that's important to you. So privacy is something that's necessary for you. Privacy is something that you learnt was the only way to process things.
Mhm.
And it's okay if that's the case.
Christy and I were talking about that earlier. Christy, you were talking about the importance of the witness. Did you want to mention
Mhm.
about that?
Mm,
Yeah, I saw a client yesterday that we were talking about this very thing, not surprising. Um, and she's been doing quite a bit of healing work, and she's starting to get in touch with emotion, let alone tears, but emotion in and of itself. And what I love again about psychosomatics is the identification of where it's held, to have a conversation about why it might be held there, because hers within her jaw was so restricted and painful.
mm,
And the conversation that we had was about um, what was it like for you expressing when you were little? That never happened. I didn't. I couldn't, or I'd get in more trouble. So the story comes out. There's two parts to it. She's telling the story, so she's hearing the story, and then understanding of why her jaw's being clenched, of holding back those emotions. And she had said to me, I don't want to cry. And I said, totally good. You don't have to cry. I said, could we reframe that just a little bit in curiosity of accessing parts of you that were put away for a long, long time? And there's a plethora of ways, through joy, through pleasure, through laughing, through stillness, that those can move through, that crying isn't the only option, because that was still very traumatic for her. And I think the amazing thing about psychosomatic work and tapping into our own intelligence is, what is that for you? It is not someone else's map about how it's done, because I wouldn't go see that person, because it has to be your map. what is your cadence, what is your safety level, and to be kind of held along that way so it's a safe container, your body feels safe, and it's your way. As it begins to open and you access feeling, literally even someone just touching you can be enough to access, because some people are never touched. And body work in and of itself is someone coming into my space, my physical space, let alone to begin to access my emotional space. And it's very it's a beautiful space, and it's vulnerable, and it's a sometimes it's like dipping your toe in the water, and I love that. Let's dip our toes together and see what comes. It doesn't have to be a big traumatic event. It can be a very gentle, beautiful movement of being seen.
Yeah.
Yes, it doesn't necessarily need to have what I would call spastic drama around it. Just that deformation um of experience. It's about recollection, it's about reclaiming. Um, because that space in your body rightfully belongs to you. Uh, it just happens to have a contorted part of yourself in there at this point in time. And we need to learn how to uh, welcome that, accept that, and appreciate that um, in order for that area to disperse.
Yeah.
So and sometimes it is mechanical and can be resolved via mechanics. And when I say mechanics, I'm referring to um, muscular pathways, the way the body operates and is structured. And then other times it does require some emotional intelligence or some emotional growth or emotional willingness. And other times the mind needs to learn how to hold appropriate space so the innocence can restore its presence. It's so much fun. I do love it. I do love it. And
It
it's
becomes more
certainly
fun as you go, as you go along, I think, in that journey, right?
absolutely, absolutely, and the way I relate to myself and the many multi-dimensional ways in which I can do that now is very different to who I was 30 years ago, 40 years ago. Because how I relate to myself is the mechanisms that I use to relate to everybody else. Thankfully, I have a much broader experience of approach. So that in itself is really what I gained out of psychosomatics. It's to be more intrigued about what I'm expanding on within myself. Because if there's a constriction, then there's a part of me that needs to expand. So, what am I expanding on? And what is my relationship and willingness to expand on that?
Yeah. And it is so counter, like you would think that it would be the opposite, that something you don't like, just separate from it.
Oh,
And
yes, it hurts when you separate.
and and yet like the emotions and the pain are all calling for the attention to come closer,
Oh, the
even though
most
the
delightful thing about grief is experiencing grief.
Yeah,
Because
challenging
once you
enough.
experience it, it's moved through and you suddenly go, oh, oh, I was avoiding that. Hmm. Yeah, avoiding feeling that because of the capacity of what comes through, right?
so true.
So the moment that there's a tweak in our body, it's a part of our consciousness going, Can you address me, please? Can you talk to
Mhm.
me?
Well, and that's part of what we're talking about today is what are the different felt senses that you have, like pain, a
Mm,
constriction, a shallow breath. I would say a numbness. I don't feel anything. What, and I love that answer because it's a pathway to, okay, which feeling nothing is also feeling something. And the pathway that leads to that is through awareness, like we're talking about again, that's awareness. I don't feel anything. And with the body work, with those people that I have, that's been their experience their whole life. I'm thinking of one woman who's 82. I just love her. How are you doing today? I'm great. I don't feel anything. You know that, Christy. Great. Let's get started because why she comes to me is for that very thing is we start to tap into so she can feel. But I just love her. Christy, don't ask me how I'm feeling. You know I don't know. And then our session begins, which to me is beautiful because the awareness of that is the work.
Yeah,
And it's so we laugh because it's funny. And
yeah.
then we start to work and she starts to feel and ouch, that hurts. And why am I crying? And, the session's beautiful. And then she goes and I see her again in a month. But because life happens and we're going to need to clean out what happens in life so we continue to do life without having it collapse on top of us because we're not aware. Because eventually, if we don't pay attention, severe pain comes in, disease can come in, arthritis and autoimmune diseases come in. Eventually the body will say you need to pay attention. Sometimes it is forced. And our goal with these calls anyway is to bring education to the idea that could you ask a question? Well, that's really interesting. Where do I constrict when I get triggered or activated? What's held or do I leave? Like leave emotionally. I don't feel anything, Christy. Do I want to fight? That's what we're trying to bring awareness to is what are your patterns. So if you find someone to do body work or even some on yourself, to open up the tissue, which is the emotional response being held. I
Yeah.
sound like a preacher. I don't mean to be a preacher.
But it is really
For
important,
that.
right? Because Christy,
It's
not every style of therapist that does body work is emotionally informed with what's actually held within the body. So someone
yeah.
could come and have like a conversation with, say, any of us or any psychosomatic therapist, then go and have a massage treatment and still work with someone who's not so much emotionally informed by their own awareness of what is held in their body parts at that point in time,
Mm.
and still have the same benefit of understanding what's being released.
Mm.
Because it's the conscious connection that the person has to what's actually happening within the body rather than, zoning out, my body's having a treatment and I'm floating away somewhere else out into the ether.
Yes, I've lent this to a person. Hopefully they fix it.
Yeah.
When you're done. I have, Linda, that's a good point. There's so many clients that I've seen through the years because I don't do deep tissue work. I do body work, but it's not really deep. And I will refer them out to someone that does deep tissue work specifically to break up some of um, if the tissue gets really hard. And I will explain to them. So, say it's in the shoulders, which is expression. And I'll explain to them when they're working on it, I want you to bring up this part in your mind that it's safe for me to express, or um, paying attention of how much you've held. And that is also as important because they're bringing awareness to their own patterns about expression. And the soft tissue holds the expression. And they could do that very easily with another therapist in their awareness around it. That's a really good point, Linda.
Yeah, yeah. There was a time in my life where there was um that's exactly what I did. I knew what I needed done tissue-wise, but I wasn't able to necessarily find an appropriate operator. But I could easily go and have the treatment, but I would leave the next hour or two to to discover or be revealed to what is within me. Um, and it's that ability um, to have that transparency with myself, my willingness to sit with um, an inverted or converted part of myself that's really pushing hard up against something, rather than experiencing what it's like to be hard up against something.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's in the experiencing of the discomfort that it relieves it.
Mm. One of the questions that sometimes gets asked is, can I just do this myself without the therapist, without you, or without someone else? Can't I just do it by myself? And I think it's a really important area to address as well, because often what we're looking at is blind spots or
Mm.
protective, adaptive patterns to something that was painful, that's been put away in the body securely until you're ready to actually address something at a point in time. But being a somewhat blind spot, which lives predominantly in the unconscious mindset, it's very difficult to work on yourself in that way because you can't challenge your style of thinking. You can't always bring the laughter and the play that's actually required to take a look with that curious mindset when you're intensely going towards, I need to change, I want this to be gone, and I'm giving it attention, and it really just has to shift because this is not who I want to be anymore moving forward. And whilst I'm just
It's
reading the comment
difficult
here.
to learn, isn't
Self
it?
cannot analyze self. I love it, Leanne.
Yeah.
But it's really important because learning to have that space held is that really important part. And so I would suggest that even though you do the self-processing, to make sure that you find someone that you are aligned to. It doesn't have to be a psychosomatic therapist. It could be anyone that holds emotional space as you're working through whatever emotions are trapped in the body and needs to have a different understanding and a different relationship with is absolutely paramount.
Yeah, and the condition of the symptom shows you your progression in the process.
Yeah.
So it's some are really short term, some are a little longer, um, but recognizing that there's a learning that's necessary. And a learning is expanding on current knowledge, current understanding, current experience, um, current physical relationship. Each of those layers are changing their ways, changing their mind, changing something, and enabling change
Mm.
is really the process of becoming. Becoming a different version of where I am, becoming a different version of who I am, becoming um, a more spacious experience of myself.
Well, you're accessing so much more
Hmm.
of, I think, especially when there's been trauma, which I think everybody has had some level of it because we're humans. Um, but what it does is it shuts off parts of us, and we don't even know that that part exists.
Hmm.
That's a very real thing. And understanding the patterns and looking at where the pain is and when does it come on and how long it's been there and when did it start creates such a grid for us to understand our progression and what is it you would like to access, what would you like to have more of, like say someone would like to have more joy, what part is still locked that you're not able to access joy. I think that's such a beautiful question because the body holds that answer more than the
Mm.
mind does. The
And
mind
it's
thinks it knows, but it doesn't.
and it's such an interesting construct, right? Because that in itself is behavioral.
Yes.
Yeah. So our ability to be able to um, expand into or open into the animation of what is joy. Um, and and there were many times in my life where there were very particular behaviors that um, I would avoid, duck, weave, um, find a workaround rather than actually enable. And some of those need to be enabled, they need to be learned, and we need to learn them from somewhere through access places and spaces. So um, it's no different to watching the Olympians. They're learning how to maneuver themselves in such precision through air in order to achieve a move. And that's a learned skilled that requires such refined focus on many levels. Yeah, they're having to contain themselves emotionally. They're learning how to align themselves mentally and then execute that through the physical form. That's such precision, yeah. Which has an effect in one way or another. It's natural for some and it's learned for others. And at the same time, there's an individual's experience of that. And it's no different if I want to enjoy a bowl of rice, it's the same experience. If I've not been near rice before, I'm learning how to approach that digestion and that experience. And so the moment that the body shows something, um, there's the moment that there's a fragment of myself that's calling um, for for a collective part of myself to gather round. Take note, take heed. Yeah, awareness, it enables access of me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's already in me. It's already there. It's only my conflict with it that allows it to remain.
Yes. The word conflict is probably a really key word too, when
Yeah.
we're taking a look at body pains and
Oh,
tension and
yeah,
really,
touch it. Don't touch it.
yeah, and really even understanding the relationships with the emotions, two conflicting emotions.
Yep, and usually that's our head and our heart.
Mhm.
In a particular location, telling us the somewhat precise formation of the conflict. Where did that conflict come from? How did that convergence occur? And and what is it that it's here now?
Hmm.
Yeah. How is it that at this very second in time, I'm being asked to focus deeply in a particular part of who I am because that part wants to be released, relieved of its current restraints.
And that's really where body work is magic. That
Yeah.
the psychosomatic piece, because you're connecting the energetic holding with the physical holding, and even the touch of, like, even on the heart or on the face or anywhere that has that band of contraction. It brings awareness to the felt sense, and it can be so gentle and profound by literal touch. and or breath into a constriction or conflict. And as the awareness comes, the holding opens.
Mm.
And I think it sometimes takes courage on our parts to feel for that moment of catching your breath because it almost cuts the breath off, and to be able to hold that with someone and have them help you breathe through it and not be swallowed by it
Mm.
and not push it back down is where healing really happens. And
Yes,
body
our
is
response
part of
to
that.
fear creates the ability to progress or freeze,
Mm-hmm.
and fear is a childhood response, um, more often than not, a childhood response. So it's training that childlike behavior to show that it has the courage to experience what's currently contained within in order for that child to be then enhanced by what was there. So
Mm.
there's a really interesting layering and encouragement, and I love that. The courage to, here we go, we're going to have connection with something that's been disturbing, but it doesn't have to remain disturbing.
Yes. I guess that one of the first things is to start to take a look at body sensations and how your body habitually may have patterns of constriction, or you might notice it by pain. And, like next week, we're going to go into, I should say next month, we're going
Next
to go
month.
a little bit further into the integration processes.
Mm-hmm.
So there is definitely an invitation to, if you're not already aware, to take a look at, where your patterns, your long-term patterns show up with a particular part of your body, which could show up as a weakness. And so we just put the invitation out to everybody, just to, particularly if you're coming next month, to take a look at what you notice within your body between this month and next month, where your body might be going, hey, trying to get your attention, and see if you can notice that in a more gentle way rather than an avoidance, just to kind of go, okay, so what's my body requiring of me?
What is your current level of capacity to care, and in what way do you care? Do you care physically? Do you care emotionally? Do you care mentally? Do you care on all three levels? If you want to um, send in any photos of different body parts and things that you're experiencing challenges with, we are more than happy to explore those through next month's meeting. And um, and of course, the mapping that is delivered through psychosomatic therapy um, shows us where the deep themes reside within the body, but also what is the topic of comprehension in that part of our body. And when it works in a healthy way, when it works in a pleasurable way, we're also noticing our current relationship with that aspect of ourselves. So next month we'll look at the um, different ways to be able to create the experience of integration through bodywork, with the extension of what we've just covered this month. Is there anything you'd like to add, Christy?
Mm. I would say be curious and allow yourself to be open to what might be possible, to understand about yourself that you might not be aware of. And to maybe take a few notes through the month. Like if you get activated, to pay attention to where you notice the activation, to slow down in it or afterwards and close your eyes for a minute, touch your heart, and ask your body, where am I feeling that? And please let me remind you, if I feel nothing, that's your answer. Your body may give you the answer, well, I feel it in my big toe. That's dumb. That's weird. I would tell you, no, it's not. It's the intelligence of the map that it will give you has nothing to do with your brain. So, however weird it is, I invite you to stay curious and map it, and we will help you with that because it isn't linear. It won't make sense sometimes where it's at or where you're clenching or holding or where you feel collapse. So stay curious without judging what you think it is and be open to what possibility might be there to understand yourself in a different way.
Thank you, Christy. Linda?
I'll just add to that, and it can be a fun process.
And it's you.
Mhm.
It's you.
Yeah.
It's nobody else. It's nothing else. It's you.
And our next session is on the 21st of March in Australia time and 20th of March in the USA, Canada. So we look forward to seeing you next month.
Take
Thank
care, everybody.